Greetings, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of Poly Weekly News. I'm your host, David Danto. I'm your host for this week. We're going to try and get some new hosts rotating in over here over the next couple of weeks, and I'm trying to convince some of my colleagues to go ahead and do this. Thank you very much for joining us today on this Monday with 2 weeks to go before Enterprise Connect. Today, we are doing a show that is about all things Microsoft. And I have three guests with me. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves in just a second. Why don't we start with you, Duncan? Introduce yourself and let everybody know who you are and what you do.
Yeah, hey David, thanks for having us on here. My name is Duncan Barnes. I'm the director for Microsoft globally at Poly. I look after the alliances from GTM and up to strategy and sales with Microsoft. So yeah, everything Microsoft definitely sits on my shoulders. Excited to have Greg and Brandon on the call with us today.
So Greg and Brandon. Greg, why don't you take a turn and tell everybody who you are and what you do?
Great, thanks, Dave. I'm Greg Barabalt. I'm responsible for the product management team in the Teams product group for all of our shared systems and interrupt services. So on the portfolio side, I manage all of our Windows-based products. So Teams Rooms, Surface Hub, and then interrupt programs like CVI and Direct Guest Join.
Terrific. Brandon, last but not least.
Yeah, thanks, David. Brandon Revy, I'm the Director of Technical Solutions for Poly. For Microsoft. I take care of specifically the video BUs, so our MTR on Android, our MTR on Windows, and the accessories and things that go along with that.
Terrific, gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining me. So, I'm kind of upset. I was looking all weekend to see if I could find my original Polycom communicator, rectangular blue thing with a USB connector. It goes back to when we were doing OCS with some of this equipment, and I couldn't find it. I did find the case for it. I'm using it to store batteries in my luggage when I travel, but I just couldn't find the device. It brings me, Duncan, to this idea that Polycom and Plantronics, the precursors to Poly, and Microsoft have had this ongoing partnership for a very long time, where starting with OCS and Link and Skype for Business and now Teams, it's really been a long-standing hand-in-hand kind of situation, hasn't it?
Yeah, actually, that's interesting you mentioned that, because one of the things that people don't realize is that Poly pretty much comes from actually two really strong organizations from back in the day, Plantronics and Polycom. When you talk about Plantronics, that's everything from the USB connected devices. When you talk about the video side of things, that's ultimately Polycom. And almost just over 2 years ago, these two organizations came together, created Poly. And I think when you look at it from that perspective, customers have this single throat to choke when they look at, investing in a partner such as Poly. We've got the end-to-end from a device perspective. We've got the services arm as well, which most customers may not even know that we have that. And in that services realm, we have the ability to actually help get our customers off legacy video endpoint systems using our CVI solution, Real Connect, into a native Teams experience. So bringing them into this Microsoft Teams world, that we will be talking about more about later. But the relationship with Microsoft and with Poly has been a really long one. And we're super excited to continue this relationship with Microsoft, and we're excited what brings us, what we bring forward in the coming future.
Yeah, and that's something that we actually talked about before we went on the air today, is this idea that that Poly has always been standing out, certainly in the last few years, as being one of the few, if maybe the only partner that Microsoft has that covers the end-to-end gamut of solutions, telephones, headsets, room systems, Android devices, Windows devices. It is an interesting portfolio that I don't think is really matched in the industry, is it?
Yeah, and it's interesting because, again, we've just coming out of a pandemic. I'm in Washington at the moment. We're talking about mask mandates being lifted, right? The companies are really looking at how they actually purchase their solutions, right? And one of the key things is when you look at a partner like Poly is, are you able to get your video endpoints? There's a tick. Are you able to get your USB endpoints, which is supporting remote working and or work from home kind of scenarios? We have a tick on that side. Your meeting room experience, same thing. We've got ticks across all of these product portfolios that Microsoft Teams has today. Plus, as I was mentioning earlier, is that services arm, right? So the ability to come in and even do workshops or assessments on behalf of customers, making sure that they're ready to take that next step into the native Teams world experience. So Poly has that end-to-end solution in terms of what we can bring to market.
Yeah, that's it's a great story, and I love being a part of that story. And Greg, I will ask you, I'm in my fourth decade in the collaboration industry. Video conferencing is where it came from. Video is the new voice. We've been saying that for how many decades at this point? But certainly with the pandemic happening and hybrid working being something that's interesting, we've finally come to the realization that collaboration is more than just video conferencing or audio conferencing. There are other things going on that are just as important that stay synced. That's a perspective that you and that Microsoft shares, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and I think, Duncan made a really good point about as we come out of the pandemic, we see a significant shift in the way that people are approaching work overall, not just meetings, but work in general. And it is because of the diverse workforce that we have now, with people working in different locations across geographies, and the ability to stay connected and do work together, achieve more as a team, even if you can't be co-located, creates even more demand on that sort of portfolio of personal devices, individual desk devices like phones, to conference room and rich collaboration experiences. So from a hybrid point of view, we think one, the ability to connect and have a video conversation, a more intimate human conversation with people, no matter where they are, is really the way that work is going to be done for the foreseeable future. And I think it's not even a pandemic statement per se anymore. It's the last couple of years have really taught us that we can be incredibly effective and incredibly productive with these tools. And it's allowed us to do some things we hadn't done in the past. We hire people now that don't sit in the same building as us. And that'll be a durable situation that we'll live with for probably the remaining time.
And Brandon, you see that out in the field as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you think about how people work, right? We all remember that when everyone was in the office and I had to get this file and it was on a server someplace, or I wanted to make a video call, I got up from my desk and I went to a room to make a video call. And now, that single pane of glass in Teams really allows us to cut so many barriers. That file that I need is now in a channel, or it's in the SharePoint tab, or it's shared to me through a single pane of glass. And the same thing with my audio calls and my video calls. It's the same application. I came from a company who didn't use Teams before I came to Poly as much, right, as we do at Poly. And now I find myself hardly ever going to Outlook except to look at emails. My schedule's in Teams. My files are in Teams. Everything I need to do is there. And to go back to what Duncan was saying, where, like Poly's that single throat to choke when you have devices. But if you're a support person supporting an organization and you're looking at, I need devices for people at their homes, I need headsets, I need phones, I need devices in video conferencing rooms, having a single vendor to build that relationship with is super important, to our customers, that they have one place to go to talk to you about all these products.
Just a quick one, David. So and I want to pivot on what Greg was saying, right? We've hired people in through virtual video, right? Just last week we had an offsite with some of the leadership at Poly, and it was the first time I received my access card for Poly's building, right? So so for almost 2 years, I've been working remote without an access card, and it felt so special to actually get my access card in my hand and go, oh, wow, I've got a belonging, I've got an access card. So, things have changed. It's super interesting and exciting.
It is, and I can give you my version of that story very briefly. Is that and everybody knows that I live in central New Jersey in the USA, and most of Poly, the majority of our people are located in California and in Texas. So we're all in different time zones, and I'm also working with my colleagues overseas as well. There are times that I'm sitting at my desk now looking at, and I apologize, you guys see me looking all over the place here. I'm looking at like 9 screens and 8 different devices that I'm computing on. So when I'm at my desk, it's very easy to use Teams to coordinate as you would expect anybody else to. But when I leave my desk, which is in my basement in my home office, and I go upstairs because I'm done, my day is over, I put my feet up, and I sit down and I relax. The experience that I have on Teams on my mobile device is exactly the same. When somebody wants to reach out and call me, I get the call there, I take the call there. When they want to share a document with me, yeah, it's not exactly the thing I want to use to compose for an hour and a half, but I can see the document, I can see the spreadsheet, I can see my colleague. I'm essentially always reachable on Teams. I personally, and I've talked about this for decades, I can choose to not be available. if I'm doing something with my family or going somewhere where I want to be off the grid. But when I choose to be available, I'm available everywhere, every time on every device. And I can do almost anything because I can access the same files and the same graphics and the same conversations and the same IMs. It's really an amazing experience, being able to have that platform to collaborate on, something I really didn't appreciate as much until the pandemic hit for me. So let me pivot there for a second after I finish that wonderful speeching, as my kids would say, and let's talk a little bit, Brandon. I'll go to you about this idea of and, not or. A lot of Microsoft partners offer one kind of solution, whether it's based on an Android and an appliance-based system, and others offer things that are based on general compute, and things like that. So Poly is one of the only companies that provides equipment that kind of can do both, depending upon how an organization wants to manage it, or where they want to manage what kind of system. And that's what you see out in the field, right? Is we're offering choice in this case.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at our MTR on Android versus our MTR on Windows, right? So to level the playing field, both are appliances. The Windows version that's on an MTR on Windows is not the same Windows 10 version you have on your laptop. It's a specific version that's made for MTR. But when you look at the two different, it's features and capabilities that you're looking at. Where MTR on Windows does have a bit faster pace on newer features coming out, a little bit more robust, where Android usually has those features, within 3 to 6 months after they're released on the Windows side in general. But when people are making those decisions, it's if I have a focus room that has, 2 to 3 people in it, and an Android-based appliance from a rollout standpoint, installation standpoint, and ROI may be a better choice than MTR on Windows, because they can roll it out fast. It's a single device. I can hang it on a display, turn it on, register it, and have calls going typically in the same day. Not that you can't do that with MTR on Windows, but it's multiple devices. We have compute, we have a touch panel, we have a camera. Once you get all those things connected, it's just a little bit different solution. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to designing with both or without. I think it's really just features, capabilities, and rollout that customers are looking at.
And Greg, you had an opinion about that as well, because it's difficult to hear somebody talking about a Windows appliance. But I think you had snapped me back on that when I was talking about that as general compute. Is that the general understanding that we want to make the differentiation that these MTR Windows devices are appliances, and that we don't have to worry about the midnight I've decided to update, stay away for 5 hours kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly. It's a good example. No, I do like to think about the Windows device as an appliance as well, in that it's like the term came from, other appliances that you may have. It is designed to solve one problem. It is designed as a room system device. And in the very same way the Android is. For us, our intention is to make the timing gap between capabilities on Windows and Android as short as we possibly can. We really want that to go away completely and have one approach to features. David, actually, to reflect on something you just said, you were talking about going upstairs at the end of the day and putting your feet up, and you have your mobile phone with the same experience. You don't have to learn anything new when you're mobile than you did on your desktop. We treat rooms in exactly the same way. Whether you go into a Windows room or an Android room, we want you to have the same experience and very familiar to what you had on the desktop. So there's nothing new to learn in the conference room either. That's really a core piece of our product strategy, and the degree to which we call these things appliances really, I think, speaks more to how we deploy and manage them. And our intention for Windows is to get to that very same low cost, simple install that we have with the Android product today. But overall, we invest in both intentionally to allow customers to choose. Some customers have a natural affinity more towards Windows, others more towards Android. Some have no affinity at all, and they're very happy to choose. And it really becomes choosing the right solution for the right room. Single screen, inexpensive deployment. I want to, go quick. Focus rooms maybe, and knock them all out quickly. And Android bar is a terrific way to do that. Larger spaces where I want more kind of mix and match of components. I want to be able to scale that room in different ways. Windows is going to provide an extended scalability there. So kind of depending on the application, we have a product that'll work in either direction.
That's terrific. Thank you. And I'll remind our viewers, anybody who has any questions for my guests, just to put them in the chat, and I'll try and get them into the show, do the best that I can. And Mika, I see you're in there. Of course, you have a Polycom communicator standing by. I don't want your Polycom communicator, though. I missed my opportunity here, but I need you to get me those Brixies when I come and visit ISE. That's very important. So let me change the subject here and ask.
I want to add something Greg said, though.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
He brought up the point of the right product for the right room. And I think in our industry, during all of this craziness, we've gotten away from asking that question of what are you going to do in the room? There's a lot of times with customers where we have a conversation with them and say, what are you going to do in the room? And they say, we're just going to have video calls. Okay. In the next room, we talk about what are you going to do in the room? And they say, well, this is the room that our marketing department uses. And they have to be able to put up 4K video at 60 frames a second to show it outside of calls. And then we also have to have in a call all these other things. Asking those questions helps you pick the right product. Now, I'm not saying that you can share 4K video on an MTR, but those types of questions really reveal those questions reveal like what that solution is going to be. So, it's not like picking wireless access point locations, right? I'm not just drawing circles and saying they're all going to be in these spots and this is what we're going to do. We really want to talk to customers and understand what are you going to do in the room, because what the marketing department needs versus what a C-level executive suite needs versus the focus room where the guest comes in and presents is completely different. The experience needs to be good and the same across the board. And when you talk about that experience, Greg had mentioned that, if you look at the touch panel on a Android device and a Windows device, they are almost similar now. I mean, the icons have a different look right now, but it's still call, share, like the icons are there. It's the same experience. So as I go from a C-level executive suite that has an MTR and Windows to the guest room downstairs with an X series Android bar, I know how to use it because the interface is simple. It's recognizable between rooms.
It's such an important point that you make. I come from the AV integration space, broadcasting, then AV integration, now collaboration. But it's so important to have that conversation with the end user, with the user organization, and be able to say no. We're not here to sell the paint that we have on the shelves. We want to understand, if you're coming to me and asking me for a display on an Android bar, wonderful, fine. What do you really want to use it for? Let's have that conversation. Let's find out what the use case truly is, because I'm not afraid to tell a client, no, that's not appropriate for you. That's the wrong way to go. Maybe you should consider something else. And it's great that we're having those conversations. More and more companies are, and it certainly changes the way vendors have been in the past. Unfortunately, where they'll sell whatever they have. Some of our competitors have 3 models, and you can either buy Model 1, Model 2, or Model 3, but they don't offer solutions to all the various entities, the various user organizations that need it. So I'm pivoting here now because I don't want to lose the chance that I have the experts on the call right now, because I have an important question that I know I'm asked all the time and the customers are asked all the time. What the heck is front row? Every time I think I know, I get confused, and I don't think that I understand it. I know it's a recent announcement, and certainly Microsoft is going into more describing it. But Greg, do you want to take on that conversation to start with, and then I'll go to Brandon and everybody else. What does front row really mean, and what can users expect from that experience?
Yeah, no, terrific. I'm glad you asked. Front row, first, most simply, it is a new layout that's available on the Teams Room platform that is tailor-made for the room. So a little bit different than the point we were just making. We want all rooms to be familiar and approachable and similar to the experience on the desktop. That's true for how you control and interact with the room. But what you see on that big front of room screen, we really want to make that a tailor-made experience that's just perfect for the meeting room. So
while you're talking, I'm going to bring up the While you're talking, I'm going to bring up the picture that Brandon sent me,
great.
so you both can kind of talk to it.
Yeah, that's perfect. So front row is, like I said, a layout that you can activate on the Teams Room. We added with that layout a feature that allows you to set a default layout. And so you can have rooms that just will automatically default into this view each time a new meeting begins. And the view is very intentionally designed for rooms to solve a few key problems, and all with the goal of keeping people more connected to the meeting and connected to each other. So you'll see the gallery along the bottom. We always put the gallery from left to right. We'll never stack people on top of each other there, which feels very familiar to people sitting in the room together. But we try to keep everybody at the same eye level, and wherever we can with the right size screen, even have the head heights be roughly the same, so everybody looks like they're in the same room together. That will actually evolve very soon to show each of those faces on a shared background instead of including each individual's own, room background, which will really make it feel like they're there in the room with you. It's a little bit of a throwback to the VTC days from a design and experience point of view, but democratized in a way that allows each of these people to be on their own endpoint, maybe in their living room, at their desk at work, on a mobile phone, maybe in another conference room, but not in another, paired up with one other very expensive VTC space. Above the gallery, we'll show the content. So anything that's being shared, whiteboard, PowerPoint Live, screen sharing, any content that's active, you'll see there. And you'll also see a pinned or spotlighted attendee in the meeting. And then to the left and right, we have two panels that we activate with additional content. Chat has really become a key piece of every meeting. It's almost like a second meeting within the meeting. And we started hearing feedback from customers that when they were in a room, they felt a little disconnected because they can't follow along with that chat. The existing layouts didn't show it. So now we have chat that's just persistent there. You see it never goes away. It's on the right side. You can always follow along in the room. On the left right now, we're showing hand raise. So anybody that raises their hand, you'll see in order on that left-hand list. And we'll evolve that as well. So that will turn into more dynamic content. We'll have things like the notes for the meeting. The agenda will appear there at the start, any action items, etc. So we're really trying to make use of every pixel we can on the screen. The example that you're showing here is a dual screen room. So there's a bezel in the middle, and we put content on the left and spotlight on the right. This works really well in a single screen room as well. And then my favorite is actually in a widescreen room. So we've been doing a combination of projection, wide aspect ratio screens, LED wall, to show things like a 21:9 or a 32:9 single screen experience that is pretty breathtaking. When you walk into a room for the first time with front row lit up there, it looks pretty cool.
And Brandon, this is something that's going to move forward, help us with the concept of meeting equality that we're pushing, as we move it into the future, right? That's really one of the things that we want to get out of this.
Yeah, I mean, Greg hit the nail on the head on how this works. I have a bunch of different slides I've put together for people to understand it, and it is a layout, right? It really is just another layout, but that collaboration piece, like I'm in meetings a lot where I have my laptop sitting here and I'm watching the meeting, but I'm watching the chat on my laptop, and just having to be able to close my laptop and watch the meeting has been fantastic, because then you can follow along with everything. It's less distraction, more understanding of what we're talking about and doing what we came there to do. I think, in the future, meeting equality, one, I love the fact the shared backgrounds, and it is a throwback to the VTC stuff, right? But that was natural. Like when that came out, it was amazing because I was in the same room with that person. I'm one of the people that did not like virtual backgrounds when they came out, because for the first 5 minutes of every meeting, someone's flipping between every virtual background they have, and everyone's talking about it like, oh, look, mine's Star Wars, right? It was distracting. Giving everyone that same background puts everyone in the same playing field. I think it's a fantastic idea and a fantastic future. When that equality piece to me is that I'm represented just as well as anyone else in the meeting. My voice is just as important as anyone else in the meeting, and I'm there to do the same thing they are. With in the future having video, like if you look at a speaker tracking camera, right? We have the bowling alley room with a front of room camera. A speaker tracking camera can pull that one person out who's speaking and put them in that row in the bottom. In the future, we're hoping to be able to pull more than one person out of that room at a time and put them in that row so that everyone in the conference room feels just as equal as the people at home.
That's definitely the goal.
That is a really, really good point. Just to build one point on that, that was one of the most, I'll say, surprising things that we learned when we started getting people back into the workplace at Microsoft and hearing customers as well, was that you were talking earlier about having conversations with customers about what they really need in the room. What we used to hear repeatedly, I mean, the constant message was, in the room, I want to make sure I can hear the remote audience well. The remote audience needs to be visible and I can hear them and know when they're speaking and really engage with them. As we started seeing people return, the energy shifted because the meeting itself really moved to an online meeting. It wasn't in the room. The meeting didn't happen in the room with a few remote people. The meeting was online and there were people everywhere. And the folks that were in the room started giving feedback like, hey, I don't have that little video of just me and my face anymore that's like well lit and centered in the frame. And my name isn't appearing on my video and nobody knows when I'm speaking. And it really got us, one, to build front row for the people in the room, but then also to really shift this focus to AI cameras, AI audio devices that help figure out what's happening in the room, contextualize that, and make it available to the remote audience in a way that actually makes the in-room people feel more connected to the meeting itself. They know that they're being represented well to that remote audience now. They're visible, they're audible, and their presence is really felt in the meeting. So that shift, I think, was really pretty fascinating, that it was the people in the room that felt the most disadvantaged and we needed to solve for.
We've got a question in the chat asking when is front row going to be available, and I suppose it rolls out in different ways in different places, but who wants to take on the answer of briefly figuring that one out?
Well, I'll take that. So it's available now. It shipped in the 4.11 update for Windows. We're working on that solution now for Android. So front row will appear on Android in the second half of this calendar year.
Okay, terrific. Thank you, gentlemen. So a couple other quickies before we wrap things up today. The first one I want to talk about is we've seen a number of posts on social media. I assume my audience has seen it as well, about how the sky is falling and all Android devices on Microsoft need to be thrown away because they're not going to be certified anymore. And cats and dogs dancing in the streets, and fire and brimstone and all the rest of it. I know that's not true. Brandon, you want to take on an answer to that one just for a second?
Yeah, it's absolutely not. So the announcement was not a surprise to us. We had already known that we needed to upgrade our Android version from 8.1 to what we're moving to. We had already talked to Microsoft about it, and we had already been working. We started working on it last year. So your X30, your X50, the devices that you have today, they will be recertified in between the October-December timeframe on Android 10, which will recertify those devices and everything will be fine.
And that's actually an important point, and it's something I was planning on talking about, but I know the three of you can probably address that. Duncan, you might even want to take this on as well, is this concept of Microsoft certification. It's one thing to say your device is compatible with Teams and it works with Teams, and hey, sure, you can use Teams, but to actually be certified by Microsoft as a Teams device requires a lot of pre-work and a lot of other work going on, and it has a lot more value than just somebody coming up and saying, hey, we work with Microsoft. Doug, do you want to talk about the certification just for a second?
Yeah, and Brandon, feel free to chime in. But the certification process with Microsoft is one that, it's just not here's a device, let's take it to Microsoft. We've got a certified for Teams logo that we can publish on our collateral. Getting certified with Microsoft has several steps in that whole process where there's almost like a pre-testing. Then we get the results, and those results help us either, make any adjustments required to get, the pass the certification. Then Microsoft takes a look at it. They do some dog food, and we do taps with some of our customers, which is allowing some customers to get the early beta versions of the product themselves. They test it. They feed it back into Microsoft. Microsoft connects with us. They give us the feedback. And if there's tweaks that need to be made, we make those tweaks. Once everything is kind of met and we've got all the tick boxes and everybody is happy We then get that certification, and only at that point in time can we actually go to market with that product itself. So, Microsoft stepped away from things like optimized for or compatible to. The product has to be certified for you to have that ultimate and optimal experience. So when we talk about enhanced video and enhanced audio, that ties into everything that we did from a certification perspective and a product perspective.
And
yeah,
Greg,
this is.
go ahead.
It's a rigorous process. Like everybody talks about those things, like what keeps you up at night. This is it, because this is 50% of my time at my job is making sure that our products are performing to what Microsoft specifications state, and those specifications are not easy to pass. It's from start to finish. If everything goes well, we're an 8 to 10 week process to get through certification, get stamped, and say, this is a good product. Microsoft stands behind it. Microsoft support stands behind it. We're with you. We're behind you. Let's do this together. And I think that's part of what this is, right? It's when a product is certified, Microsoft can help you with it, and Poly can help you with it. Obviously, our internal services will always help any customer with anything. But because our E70, for instance, got certified, a customer from a competitive MTR may like that camera and want to put it with theirs. Because we've gone through certification, we know it's a certified component of the Microsoft MTR ecosystem, and it can absolutely be supported by that competitor's MTR solution.
That was actually the point. Go ahead.
Sorry, just on that, it's been interesting to watch this again, and I don't want to talk about the pandemic, but at the start of the pandemic, right, everybody rushed out and got whatever webcam they can, whatever headset they can. No one cared whether it was certified or not. And what we've seen now is people are starting to realize that the audio quality or the video quality isn't supported through Teams, and the experience is terrible. So, most customers will look at it and have this terrible clip-in audio going off and then immediately blame the application, not realizing that that headset hasn't gone through that testing process to get certified to give you that optimal experience. So we are seeing customers looking at this and going, well, we want to kind of start refreshing because this is here to stay. Work from home is a strategy that we are embracing as an organization. So I need my associates to have the best audio device that is certified for Teams. So, that's honestly the biggest thing is making sure that you've got a certified device for the application use, because you're going to get that ultimate experience.
Yeah, and I think, it's funny. I was talking to a technician and I said the one thing the pandemic did for the computer industry is make everyone take USB seriously. Because before that in the AV industry, right, USB, like you just plug your printer in, or I need to plug in this device to get some communications from it. Now most AV vendors can tell you what the difference between 2.0, 3.0, 3.1 is, what the speeds are, what asynchronous means, like why we have to have that, and in that USB, there's a lot of things we put across that. There's telemetry, there's feedback, there's the audio signal, the video signal, all of those things that we build into the product to meet the Microsoft specification. There's a reason we're doing it for that audio clipping. So we can have feedback between the devices to know the device is failing. Let the application take over AEC, or the AEC on the device is doing better than the application. Let's trade to get a better experience. It's not just for printers. Like I should make a T-shirt, right? USB is not just for printers anymore, folks.
That's a great point, and I love the point you made about a minute or two ago, which the idea of interchangeability. I can't tell you how many customers of some of our competitors' products come along and say, really, if you're certified and I'm using a certified product from one of your competitors, I can take it out and put yours in. I mean, some of our competitors are literally cobbling together their stuff. We'll get this frame from this plastic manufacturer and these speakers from this company and this camera from this company, and get a hammer and jam it into the device, and they put it in there. And when the speakers are too loud, the camera vibrates, and it's a terrible experience. And we're telling them, look, you can keep the infrastructure from our competitor that you want, but put in one of our higher quality camera bars. And because it's certified, you have that interchangeability. That's one of the things that I think Microsoft is most proud of, is that anything that's marked certified for Teams can work with anything else that's marked certified for Teams. Is that a fair comment, Greg?
Yeah, very. And we see that all over the place now. I mean, every customer is looking at how to, again, it's about putting the right thing in the right room and being able to mix and match between, OEMs, or just between versions of the product, Android and Windows, is a very core piece of that.
Okay, gentlemen, I really appreciate the conversation. Duncan, I'm going to let you have the last word here. Anybody else wants to chime in, you can feel free. But I'd like to drum home this concept of if our friends and our customers and our end users are looking at MTR, why do you think that the Poly MTR and that Poly solutions for teams should be their first choice?
Yeah, as I said at the opening, right, when you're looking at, backing a horse and, when you want a partner that can walk the journey with you from legacy infrastructure endpoints or video endpoints that you have into something that is net new, that is native with Teams, you have a partner with Parley, right, who's got those end-to-end solutions from a device perspective. We've got that services arm as well, as I mentioned. So even if you're kind of putting your foot in the water right now and going, well, what does that meeting room experience look like for myself, or what does voice in the cloud look like for myself? We can help you with those workshops and those assessments in terms of how far you are in terms of preparation. Once that is done, you've got an array of products that are certified from Poly that you can go in and select. Even if it's a USB experience on a headset, we have persona workshops that will help you as an organization determine what style of persona you have, what environment they're working in, and then it will almost show you like exactly what headsets or what speaker devices are suitable for those individuals. So, we have you have a partner who is pretty much end to end, and I think that is a huge value when you're looking at, ensuring and embracing this whole new strategy of things to come as we've seen.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me today. I learned a lot today. I think it's a great conversation. Greg, yourself and your teammates are certainly invited back here. The next time we have an announcement or something we can take a sneak peek at, we'll bring you on the show and let everybody see what's going on. We've done that in the past, and we'll do that again.
Perfect.
For the time being, Greg,
Thank you.
why don't you let everybody know if they want to reach out to you directly, how would somebody get in touch with you?
Easiest way is on LinkedIn. Just Greg Barabalt on LinkedIn. You can put the link in the right in the description.
Okay, Duncan, same question to you. If somebody wants to reach out to you, how would they do that?
Yeah, they can go directly with duncan.microsoft@poly.com, and happy to help and support where we can. And if you don't mind, I want to just quickly put one more punt in. Is like, if you haven't registered for Enterprise Connect, definitely do so. We're excited. There's some great things coming out at Enterprise Connect. There's a number of sessions that we even co-hosting with Microsoft as well. So, if you haven't, make some time, get registered, look us up, come see us at the booth. We're super excited. This is the first time in the 2-3 years that we're going to be in person in Orlando. So I'm excited.
Yeah, we had a show previewing Enterprise Connect last week. I'm going to be doing a show from Enterprise Connect. It's going to be a little exciting in a couple of weeks from now. It's actually 2 weeks from today as we're recording this, so I think it's going to be exciting. And as I mentioned on the show before, if you're a watcher of Poly Weekly News, if you catch me on the show floor somewhere at Enterprise Connect and mention that you watch it on Poly Weekly News, I may have a headset or two or a sync or something to give away. So by all means, come up and say hello to us and be friendly. We're really looking forward to seeing everybody in person again. Giving you the last word, Brandon, how would somebody reach out to you if they want to get a hold of you?
Yeah, LinkedIn's probably the best way. I have accounts on Twitter and things like that, but LinkedIn's the one I pay the most attention to. So it's just Brandon Rebbe, REBBE, at LinkedIn.
Gentlemen, again, thank you very much for taking the time to be here to talk to our viewers and everything else. I appreciate you spending the time with us. Let me start to wrap up the show by talking about what's going on for next week. We're going to have a really interesting, a great show again for next week. Let me share with you guys what that looks like. We're going to have a conversation around Zoom Phone. Tomorrow is also International Women's Day, so I'll have a couple of my colleagues talking about International Women's Day. And I'm going to make the point, which is actually very confusing, and I really hate confusing everybody, but confusing people is kind of what I do for a living, unfortunately. Daylight savings time begins in the United States on the following Sunday. On the where are we today? Today is the 7th, so we're talking about the 13th. But it doesn't begin in EMEA and the rest of the world for 2 weeks after that. So the timing of our show is going to change a little bit. We're still going to do it at 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. We're moving while we're on Daylight Time 1 hour earlier for Greenwich Mean Time, and for 2 weeks before the UK and the rest of EMEA move, it's going to be 1 hour earlier there. So please make note of the time. Join us next week. It's going to be a terrific show next week. And as I said, in 2 weeks, we're going to see you at Enterprise Connect. So thanks very much for joining us. Thanks for being with us. Always, you can find us at tinyurl.com/polyweeklynews. And for all of my colleagues at Poly, we'll see you next week.
Yeah.